So, what is this Kratom stuff? I have these neighbors. They two. There's a couple of Thai restaurants here, and I asked one of them, "How do you pronounce it? How do you say it? How do you say the word?" And he said it's pronounced Kratom by Kratom. So in Thai, Kratom means field house, and by Kratom indicates that it's the leaf, the as as distinguished from a field shack. So what is it? It's an herb. It's a single leaf. It's a leaf from a tree in the coffee family, and functionally speaking, it's an opioid, a mild opioid. It's better though, in my opinion, because the evidence shows that it isn't. Okay, if someone I have a lot of customers who come in and tell me about their experiences. And many of these people have taken pain medications and since gotten off of them with Kratom. Well, before they switched to Kratom, some of them had their lives dominated by pain medications. Like they would start with a small amount, and then after a couple months they'd take more, and they'd take more, and then they'd switch kinds, and then they got into a cycle. With opioids and opiates, the body will build a tolerance, so that amount will no longer affect the person correctly, so they'll have to take more. The study I was reading, some of the subjects received a morphine-based medicine, and some received that same medicine with a kratom extract in addition to it. And the ones that received the kratom extract with the morphine-based medicine, they didn't experience that tolerance building. They could take the same amount continually. And that's how it is with Kratom. There is a certain amount of a tolerance that can be experienced, but by and large, people who take it, they take the same amount every day for prolonged periods of time. Kratom is used for several reasons. And there's several different types of Kratom. Just because Kratom has a certain name doesn't mean it has the same effects as another Kratom with that same name. Like if you look on the internet, largely people will say white Kratom is used for stimulation and energy. Well, generally that's true. The white I have and sell most of is the best one I have for pain. Whereas the most stimulating one I have is a green, and it's really not as good for pain, but it's my favorite. Kratoms are usually named after the region they come from, as well as the color of the veins and stems in the leaf. So if you have a red Bali, it means that the plant originally originated from Bali. It may have been grown in Sumatra or Borneo, but it originated from Bali, and the color of the veins in the leaf were red. Typically when people sell Kratom, the stems and veins have been removed from the leaf, and then the leaf is powdered and in some way consumed. Some people will make tea with it, like 15, 20 years ago when I first was introduced to Kratom. The shop in town had it as a crushed leaf, and we would make tea with it. And when I had a shop over yonder, I started selling herbs, and when I started selling Kratom, it was always powdered. And most of the people who would buy it would consume it just as a powder. Some people will take it in capsules. Some people will just pop it in their mouth and drink water over it. And some people will mix it with a drink and drink it. I usually take about this much each day, which I don't know if you can see. That's actually like a very, very shallow, not quite level teaspoon. It looks like I always call that a heaping half teaspoon. I don't know if you can see. That's like shallower than level on a teaspoon. So what I do, how I take it, and I think that's how I recommend people take it if they're going to eat it. Take a deep breath in, pop it in the mouth, exhale through the nose, take a mouthful of water, swish it quickly and swallow it, and then just drink water over it. There's two dangers doing it this way. Number one, you could inhale some of the dust and it would make you cough. And number two, it could clump up in the back of your throat, which tastes gross and it's uncomfortable. So that's why I always breathe in deep, put it in my mouth and exhale through my nose. Just breathe through my nose then. Put a mouthful of water and give it a quick swish. That way you don't really taste it so much. I don't mind the taste too much, you know. It doesn't bother me. Some of it gets really bitter as it ages a little bit. And if it's really fresh, like the green Mang Da I have right now, it tastes like butter. It's so nice. It's so smooth. This is fresh, but it's bitter. The alkaloids are bitter. So then do a quick swish with water and drink it down, and then drink water over that. Like, watch. Here's how I do it. Good to go. I usually take it once a day in the afternoon. People who take it for chronic pain a lot of times will take it 2 and 3 and even 4 times a day. If a person takes it more than 2 times a day, certainly 3 times a day or more, constipation can actually be an issue. And I don't get constipated. So a year and a half ago, I twisted my knee super bad. I couldn't even walk for a few days. And I was taking Kratom 4 times a day for several weeks. And I realized that Kratom can cause constipation. I realized you actually have to look out for that. But other than that, there's not a lot of negative side effects that I know of from Kratom. It can cause nausea and dizziness, especially in higher doses. And it can cause, it is habit forming. People who take it all the time typically want to keep taking it. Most people take it for anxiety or like it's just a feeling of blah, sluggishness, physical pain. A lot more people take it to sleep than I realized. I started asking people who come through the shop. Most people who take it to sleep take the Reds. Mostly the Reds or the Bollies are more. You take them, it's great and euphoric, but then it's, after an hour, it's bedtime. Whereas the greens, most of the greens I have, are very, stimulating and just euphoric. Although, if you took enough of any of them, they'd be sedative. Kratom is a really interesting plant for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons it's super interesting is the way it interacts with the opioid receptors. Has an affinity for the kappa receptors, but then it seems to overflow into the mu and delta receptors. So in smaller amounts, it has this real energizing, stimulating thing. And as you take more, it has more of the analgesic effect, the pain effect. And after some of these, I've started reading a lot of studies. I'll do a lot more videos about Kratom, more proper videos, especially centered around testimonials and these studies. But one thing I read in one of the studies, especially about I mentioned it earlier, about how Kratom extract can mitigate the tolerance building effect from pharmaceuticals and opiates and opioids. And I don't advocate the use of drugs. I don't know really anything about pharmaceuticals personally, but a lot of people who come in here and talk to me, they've come from a history of using them either through addiction or pain management. It's really quite a tragedy. In fact, it's a racket. The pharmaceutical corporations double dealing with the doctors and getting people hooked on these toxic substances. It's dangerous. But someone who uses heroin, this buddy of mine, I haven't seen him for months now. He doesn't answer his phone. I hope he's okay. But he really is frustrated. He got wrapped up into heroin. The dealer even warned him. And, he's just told me this. I've tried again and again to get him to take Kratom. Only one time was I successful. And that's when I made him do it. The only way I would take him, to go pick him up to bring him here to paint, because that's what he'll do. He paints. was if he would take some kratom instead of heroin. And he had to admit, he admitted that he didn't feel restless or anxiety. But, for the addict, it's always in their mind. I would like, now with this new information, I'd like to turn him on to the idea that if he supplemented his heroin use with kratom, he wouldn't have to take so much heroin. Which, I mean, let's face it, for a broke addict, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And plus, and this is me being a little subversive, he would be able to start getting used to the idea of kratom as a substance that's a benefit to him. Because let's face it, a lot of people who are in the situation of addiction or needing pain management, to hear of an herb, it's like, is this smoking tea? What is this? Most people just don't believe it. But kratom is not wishful thinking. I will say this, it's a bit of a tragedy. Some people try kratom and they don't like it. And I must have 10 kinds here, 15 kinds maybe. And there's kinds people don't like. I mean, some people who use it every day, who've used it for years, they'll try a new one or a different one that I have, and they'll bring it back. Of course, I don't resell it, but I always make good. I don't want anybody getting anything they're not happy with. But I mean, like, oh, it made me nauseous and gave me a headache and stuff like that. Oh, sorry about that. Let me give you something different. But, if it was someone's first time trying kratom and that was their experience, it would be a tragedy. Because I hear once a month at least someone coming in here and saying kratom saved their life. This is an herb that saves people's lives. It's not just rhetoric. That's actually the case. People get wrapped up in pills and stuff, and it becomes a cycle that dominates their life. How are they going to get it? How are they going to afford it? Other people they know want them. They want them from the other people they know. It becomes the basic structure of their life, the addictions. And kratom is a way out. Most people take kratom some people lose weight on kratom, but generally speaking, people take it for energy and optimism. Sometimes they get the restless leg thing, especially at night they can't sleep. People will take it for that. People will take it to mitigate withdrawal symptoms from opiates or opioids or methadone. One fellow, he was on methadone and he quit. After he had walked it down, but after 5 days he was just hurting, he said. And he remembered he had some kratom in his lunchbox he had bought. And he took it and he said within 20 minutes he was... Well, if you get to the point where you're hurting from withdrawal symptoms and you take kratom, it could make you a little high. But kratom is really beautiful in that it has a built-in thing where if you take too much, you won't enjoy it. You'll throw up. So, and that's typically way more than a person would have to take. But there's so many different kinds. It's actually interesting that some kinds are more suited for people who take larger amounts. Like when people come in here and they don't know, people come in looking for it even though they don't know about it. And I try and give them as much advice and education as I can. I typically tell people to take about what I took here, a heaping half teaspoon, between a quarter teaspoon and a teaspoon, no more than a tablespoon. If you took a tablespoon and you were a normal person on a normal day, you'd probably be okay. But that's right on the edge of where you might start having a bad time. And, one guy comes in here, he takes it before he works out. He loves it. He told me a story. He gave some to another guy working out there, and the guy was just like, "Whoa, this is so good! What is this? I feel awesome!" And he's like, "Shh, be quiet." It's legal, but wow, you don't want to be freaking out over getting amped on some substance, I don't know. Maybe some people do. Most people don't take it to get high. It's not like people are getting high off of kratom. There are extracts, and I try and dissuade anybody from taking extracts because they open it up to abuse, and I don't know. I know that I have a couple of distributors, and by and large, everybody prefers one of them. I have access to a distributor who distributes 90% of the kratom in the country. I mean, a lot of kratom goes through this company. And, they have some good kratom. but by and large, people prefer one particular vendor I get. And the other one, it's hit and miss. Some people will like them, and other people will not like them. People can be very particular with Kratom. But by and large, my one vendor, everybody likes it. Everybody likes it. My premium Meng Da is my best seller, probably. Meng Da just means pimp grade. You can put that name on anything. I want the Meng Da. Really? Because I can call this one Meng Da. I can call this one Meng Da. What do you want? Like, what effects do you want? That's what I always ask people when they first come in. Do you have experience with it? What effects, what do you like about it? Well, I'm just looking for a Bali. Yeah, well, I've got a few. What do you want? What do you want? You know, that's the problem. Sometimes people, I think, are intimidated and they just want to seem more knowledgeable or experienced. I'll give you what you want. Just tell me and I'll give it to you. But I want to make sure you're getting the best quality and the best for what you want. I have some that I sell maybe an ounce a week. I mean, just not much, you know. I mean, ultimately it aggregates, you know. But others I sell a lot, you know, every day. Like my premium Meng Da, I sell that one the most. If in doubt, I steer someone to my green Meng Da. It's very, very, very good. Right now it's super fresh. But typically, if someone's wanting for pain, I give them my white #1, which I don't think anybody else selling it on the internet has that one, you know, because I know where I get it. But, you know, a lot of people wanting stimulation, they look for whites, but I give them my super green. It's so good. That's what I just took. It's so fun. It's starting to kick in a little bit. I'm going to cut this off here. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment. You know, you can always call me at, if I have time, I'll talk to you. It's 3 Wizards in Las Vegas, Nevada. Find me on Google Maps. Call me up.